Because of the following special program, Mr. Merlin will not be presented this evening.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
Hi, I'm Alex Ross. The two pieces are sort of a type. They're both kind of recreations of artwork that existed in the 90s. In fact, this piece here for the Avengers is in most ways a recreation or a tribute to George Perez's poster version from the mid-90s, where he did a shot that featured in it a figure of Captain America that was very similar to what I've done here, positioning of the Vision or positioning of Hawkeye, and I believe a few other elements are very similar to that piece, and it's consciously so. I was building off that inspiration, but I kind of refitted my design to fill out bigger shots of the figures so that I was making a wider composition and getting in a lot of the same characters, but still not quite as many as what George himself did, because George's thing was always to try and get in the maximum amount of content into pieces that he did.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It's time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here, long time coming to get Sina Grace on a Word Balloon episode. Welcome, Sina.
Hi, happy to be here. Thanks for staying up late for me too.
I'm a night owl, dude. This is great. This is the shank of the evening for me as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, perfect.
Hey, man, congratulations on all the stuff you've done. But lately, this fantastic Superman graphic novel, The Harvests of Youth. Now it's billed as a YA. I'm certainly not a young adult anymore. I gotta tell you, it's great, Sina. I mean, it really echoes my favorite aspects of the Smallville TV series, and it really embraces the idea of Clark growing up, having his powers, having to keep them secret, but also his core group of friends. And you introduce some new characters. Tremendous job. Congratulations.
Thank you. That means a lot. That means a lot. I don't know. I was scared with Superman, so whenever anyone likes it, it's like, yes, okay, I didn't mess up.
Well, truthfully, man, and I mean, I assume based on the writing that you were a fan of the TV show.
Yeah, I was a fan. I have to be honest, I didn't watch all of the seasons. They lost me after a point, but it was definitely like I wanted to. I think whenever I'm at my best is when I'm just being honest with what I like, or like sticking to what I like. And so when I was working on this book and kind of like thinking about my relationship with Superman, I was like, oh, I have all of these Superman books. I just never like, they just were always piecemeal through my life. And obviously Smallville was a big part of it. So I just tapped into the Clark that I like. And then one of our viewers and friends tonight, Dave, was like, he's a huge Superman fan. So like I would always talk to him too and be like, okay, like if I make him happy, I didn't mess up. I didn't mess up.
I'm curious then what Superman creators did you gravitate to?
I mean it goes without saying, but like the Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale's Superman for All Seasons was both like a big inspiration insofar as I wanted to do something that was its own flavor of Superman ice cream and that was distinct in a way. And so I really looked at that in terms of just how that created its own version of Smallville. My version of Smallville is like, it's very modern, and it takes a lot from sort of modern day Cleveland and some of the issues Cleveland as a city has dealt with. And then I looked at Superman Birthright again, and that was funny because I looked at that being like, okay, what am I going to do different? And I looked at it and I was like, I'm going to do everything different because Clark is a little bit older in that book than where my book finds him. So that was really cool. And then obviously All-Star Superman and a couple others. I really liked also like Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness's run. Yeah, Jeff Loeb turns out to be this like kind of like he's done a lot of great different Superman eras. And then I like I like the Mark Waid World's Finest book too, and yeah, there's a ton of them. And also, oddly enough, Superman Red Sun
Oh, I
is a
love that.
really it's yeah, for something that's so like far away from the canon, it is one of the most quintessential Superman stories to me.
I think Mark is one of the most underrated Superman writers. If you ever read his uh, Superman adventures that were like, adaptation, not really adaptations, but in the style of the cartoon, and they were meant to be a kid's comic, he's writing the shit out of Superman, man. He's just
Oh, I
like,
gotta find those.
they're great. And they are hard to find. I'm surprised that DC hasn't put them into a full-sized graphic novel presentation. They were in digest. That's how I bought them. I mean, of course, originally,
Oh,
separate issues, but it's like, oh my God, Mark is just like writing these great all ages Superman stories that would have been fine in the main title.
he loves Superman. I have said it enough publicly that I'm gonna say it again publicly, but like years ago, I was at some party with him, and I don't know how it came up, but I was just like, I said it. I was like, "There's no good Superman stories to tell," and he's like, "What are you talking about? There's so many." And I was like, "No, blah blah blah. They've all been told, and he's too powerful." And and then this DC editor asked me like what I do, and I thought about that, and I was like, "Oh, there are so many great stories because it's not about what he can punch. It's actually like quite the opposite. I think the back of my book said it, but it's like it's his greatest power is hope. He has a handful of amazing powers, but like hope and what he instills in others is what I think is his greatest power is.
Well, and in your story, the incident, and I don't know how much you want. I'll let you describe it if you want to say, but it kind of shows that great moment in the Donner movie, the '78 movie, when he's still Jeff East being played by Jeff East, and he's like, "Mom, all these powers I have, and I couldn't save Dad." And something similar happens in Clark's Circle of Friends, and it really is
Yeah.
Smallville High. Although you give their high school a different name, correct?
I think no, I call it Smallville High. I can't
Okay.
remember. I should have reread the book because I can't remember what I call the academy that Lex Luthor goes to. But
Oh, excuse
I,
me. Right, it's Lex's school. That's the different school. Yes.
yeah, I don't, and I think it's canon. It's funny because I rewatched the Donner Superman, and then I was like, oh, it'd be really funny if I put like Otis in the book too. And so even Otis like shows up in there. I just did all these things that's like it's they're tips of the hat, and I'm not here to like uh to crap on or redefine in some bombastic way what people love. I just sort of wanted to do my side of it or my massage on it. And yeah, but yeah, for people who don't know, the book is about Clark, modern day Clark, and all the kind of hallmarks we know about him are still there. The main thing I said when I was pitching it is I was like, can we like do nothing with the fucking spaceship? I was like, I don't want to do spaceship. I don't want to do kryptonite. Like, I want to, can we like, it's the same thing if I ever do Batman. I'm like, I don't want to fucking talk about Crime Alley. Like, I don't have anything new to say about that. And I think people want to hear about other stuff. But,
I agree.
so he's post ship, pre Lois, pre college. And the book starts with, him discovering that a classmate has committed suicide. And, that sort of sends the town reeling, and as the book progresses, sort of there's just more and more complicated and insidious stuff happening, and Clark is finding that there are some instances where he needs to use his powers, and there's some instances where he doesn't, and it was just a really great way to kind of watch this guy mess up without destroying the world. But there's just a lot of moments where it's the end of his world because these people are just so fractured by the end of the book. And yeah, it was I remember telling my friend's mom about it, and I was like, yeah, it starts with the suicide on page 15, and she's like, oh, that's bleak. And I was like, I know. I was like, but I get you through it. It's Superman. Like
You do.
it ends with it ends as hopeful as anything can when you make it in a pandemic. When you make a book in a pandemic, it just gets dark.
But the best writers, especially of the last 20 plus years or so, have really humanized these heroes and had them face real life issues. And that's why I think it's appropriate that Clark has to deal with this. Is this something? Did you have a teen friend that killed themselves?
Yeah. Well, it was it was, how do I say this? I'm without the words, but so the book is dedicated to three people, um, all people I knew from high school. One of them jumped off a building, but he was on drugs, so we're not sure if it was suicide. Another one was stabbed to death at a party. And then the guy, the clerk of the dedications, this guy Jimmy, he was like such a great dude in high school. He married his high school sweetheart. He then went back to teach at our middle school, and he unfortunately like died of cancer in our 20s. And so, those people and those deaths were really important to me. The two people before Jimmy, they died in high school, and so that was also the big thing about this book was, I think that's why it doesn't feel like a young adult book. Is it's dealing with issues that teenagers do face, but parents and school teachers are praying that they don't, and so I really wanted to make a book about grief and young people facing grief for the first time. And then similarly too, Clark facing grief for the first time, because there's moments in the beginning where he's like, oh, I'm gonna outlive, like, how do I die? Because again, it's sort of pre-kryptonite, so he's just like, how do I die? Like, do I die? I'm gonna watch everyone die, and he has to deal with, I think that was really powerful to me, was to watch this man understand what protecting mortality means in the face of confirming his own immortality. It's a very heady book. I had when you're trapped at home for 2 years, you come up with you get deep in the weeds.
Well, I think you did a hell of a job. And forgive me, Sina, I didn't know about the art side of your abilities.
Yeah.
And here I'm going to show at the back of the book the cast, because these pictures are so great. And
yeah,
here's Lana, and there's Pete Ross, and there's Lex, and then a character that you introduce. That's
Amy.
Amy, yeah. And great, again, I don't want to spoil the book, but she becomes a very important character in the book. And I love that you've expanded Clark's, group of friends. Gil is another one that we're about to see. I'll move to the next image. This is a double page spread, everybody. But there's Clark, there's Jonathan, there's Martha. Is that
Chloe
Lana?
Sullivan?
Oh,
no, that's Chloe Sullivan. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's Gil. And it's great that Chloe is there too. I think Chloe is a great character. I have nothing but compassion for the poor woman that got sucked into that cult and everything.
Yeah, justice for Chloe. That was I felt I read a lot of stuff about her, and I just felt so bad about that. And again, that was just sort of my tip of the hat to kind of like, honoring like that fandom and my relationship with that side of it. And, kind of I think Nick Spencer, somebody already brought her into the comic books, but,
yes.
But I was like, well, I want to too. And,
that's great, man. No, that's great.
Go ahead.
Interesting. I just think she's an interesting counterweight to what Lana represents. And, is kind of, certainly, obviously, especially when the TV show was happening, prior to them introducing Lois, she had that same kind of Lois Lane kind of let's get to the truth, which I thought was interesting. And also seeing more in Clark than he saw in himself on the TV show. I think Amy obviously takes that role in your story. And I think it's a really great character. But I love, too, I'm a sucker, man, going back to even the Silver Age stories. I love the Pete Ross Clark Kent relationship. And I kind of did like that in Smallville. Clark knew that Pete knew. I mean, I always thought it was cute in the old days that Silver Age Pete was just kind of this great like shadow for Clark, where it's like, I'm going to do something so Clark can get away and be Superboy or whatever. And like Clark never knew. I mean, he knew he was a good friend, but he didn't know how good of a friend Pete was. Ever.
Yeah, I think especially with like making him, like, with like kind of the keeping him black from the TV show thing, it was like I wanted to make sure that it wasn't like, with that aspect of representation, it's like I wanted to make sure that there was like respect from both sides. So, or Clark respecting Pete and not just kind of like being like unbeknownst to him. But all these little things, all these little touches. I'm glad you noticed. But on the art thing, I thought I mentioned this in one of our emails, but I'm realizing I probably forgot. I'd actually like at one point in my tapestry I call a career. I apprenticed under Howard Chaykin for a little
Yes, I
while.
want to talk. I do want to talk about that. We'll absolutely talk about that. I can't imagine. I've never. Well, I guess Dean Haspiel, but Dean has never really given me any direct Howard stories because he assisted Howard and Walter Simonson as well when they were
Yeah.
together. So no, I am interested in that. But let's talk about your stuff, man. Before
Okay.
let's take the Chaikin stuff for later. But also, shame on me, I didn't know about Rockstar and Softboy.
Oh yeah, that was a whole reaction to uh like losing a competition at DC Comics. We're part of, so me and this writer Josh Trujillo, who's doing a great job on Blue Beetle right now, and you should have him on. He's a gem of a human being. But we were both on opposite ends of a bracket for this like public voting competition to get our pitches greenlit. And we both lost on the same side of our brackets, and we're, lamenting on the phone. And he was like, "Oh yeah, like I called so and so or texted him and congratulated him." And on my side, Tim Seeley won, and I was like, "Fuck that! I'm not fucking telling Tim Seeley shit." Like, why? I liked him, and he's a very lovely man, but I was so salty. I was so salty, and Josh was like, "Well, that's because you're the rock star and I'm the soft boy." And I was like, "That's a comic book idea, and I'm gonna make a comic book. I'm not fucking losing this fucking thing. I'm gonna get a fucking Image comic out of it." And yeah, I did.
Hilarious. Well, tell me, do you mind telling me? Well,
Yeah.
It was public. What was your DC pitch? Because I remember
I
this
did.
competition.
Yeah, I did basically. It was a Green Lantern book. It was like a Green Lanterns. It was called Underworld on Fire, and it was basically like a buddy cop book between Kyle and Kilowog. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, I was really into it, and I think it internally had legs for a little bit, but the problem was there was like the show was in development, and so then
Yes.
suddenly there was all this attention towards Hal, and
Yep.
Hal had a book, and it just kind of
Ah,
it was starting to make less and less sense to figure out how to pigeonhole that in sort of what was happening in the continuity at the time. But like I had a really great connection with the artist V. Ken Marion, and we keep talking about like, well, let's convince them to get us to do something. Like let's do something, and he just draws an amazing Kyle Rayner. So like
wow.
maybe in 2 or 3 years, I don't know. He's busy guy, but I would love to. The Green Lantern stuff is a lot of fun too, and I think also similarly, you look at it from the outside and it's kind of daunting, or you don't think you can find your in, and then you spend a little while. And with Kyle especially, like I was like, oh, I grew up with this guy. I love this guy, and the stories I love about him kind of they just everything got so intergalactic that like I feel like a lot of the human side of Kyle didn't get thrown to the wayside, but just didn't get nurtured the way that maybe like I would have kind of gone at it. So yeah, I still have hope that one day I'll mess with Kyle Rayner.
Dude, I hear Seeley's one of my good friends, but I mean, no, it sucks when other good ideas get shot down. He had his Robbins book, I know.
Yeah, and listen, it was a beautiful book, and so it's like I'm just a sore loser.
That's all right, man. No, I don't blame you at all. And like you said, you got Rockstar and Softplay out of it. Now you've done two
yeah, they're like these oversized one shots, and I need to rethink them because they're just the problem is they're like treated like book market items, and so they just like the returnability, and like they go to bookstores, but like they don't have spines because they weren't meant to go to bookstores. And they're just like the second one basically just only broke even, and that's to do like a 64-page book, it's
sure
you got to do more than break even when you're in your 30s. But I'm finding more ways to figure out what to do with them, because it's such a fun book, and it's about like just two best friends, and it did come from like like I'm a gay guy, and I just feel like for so long it was always like like I'm done projecting my friendships onto like Lucy and Ethel, or like Romy and Michelle, or any of these like female characters. I just wanted to create gay BFFs that everyone would say like, I'm the rock star and I'm the soft boy. And even at the signing I did last night, like someone bought it just sight unseen because they were like,
Oh, cool.
I have two of those in my group, like just the name alone. And so I love them. It's a good book, and anyone who's watching this, go buy it, because I want to make more.
I don't know if our Burrow Snake is referring to Superman or Rockstar and Softboy, But regardless, he's excited to read one of those two. He'll probably chime in again and clarify. But regardless, I love the way you back to Superman. I love the way you've made Lex in a non-Smallville TV way, but again that he's a peer of Clark's, and I love that Lex's instincts show that he's intrigued by Clark, and he almost doesn't know what it is, but he's like, yeah, I feel like I can connect to you, and that is another aspect going again back to the Silver Age. I don't know if you ever read Elliot Magen's Superman novels that he did, but
I read one. That's crazy. I read one. I can't remember which one, but oh my gosh, you're giving me weird, like human body, out of body, like flashback memories. Oh my gosh.
It's both of them are incredible novels that he wrote. And of course, he was one of the best 70s Superman writers anyway. But I really love that despite Lex's hatred of Superman, that he remembers the friendship and he can still push Superman's buttons in interesting ways, and I love that. D Gold, your buddy is saying yes. The titles are Last Son of Krypton and Miracle Monday. And it's Last Son of Krypton that I think really. There's one point where they're kind of in a weird science fiction sort of trap, and Lex is the one that like gets Superman like he's unconscious, and he's like, I can't believe I just saved you, and it's like, but again, they know each other. And then they can push each other's buttons. Or I love that scene, that extra scene in Kingdom Come when Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman are at the Planet Krypton restaurant, like Planet Hollywood. And Clark just goes, "Hey, how's Luthor?" And he goes, "Oh, I caught him trying to hack into the Batcave the other day." And he goes, "He says hello." And Clark goes, "Really?" And Batman's like, "No, of course not, dumbass. But I know how much you want everyone to like you. And I'm sorry to say that, no, Lex is still pissed off at you." And it's just those kind of little moments and stuff that I miss about their, depending on where they are in continuity. I don't even know these days. I don't think they used to be friends. I'm not even sure anymore. But, thing. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I was going to say, it's interesting, like how Josh Williamson has them paired right now. I don't know if you've read that, but like.
I got to catch up. No, I have to catch up.
It's like they have like a weird, right now it's almost like akin to like a telepathic rapport based on like Superman's like super hearing. So it's really funny, kind of just like, it's like almost like, like one of these things is like Lex Luthor just in your head being like,
in his head. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, they have that great moment in the Donner movie too, where Hackman says, "I know you're the only person that can hear this, Superman," and blah, blah, blah. And it's, it's kind of that campy Batman 66, a little tinge to that, but still great. Here's Snake's back. He says he was talking about Superman. "This book gives me a Superman smashes the Klan kind of vibe, but more slice of life, which has me so interested."
Oh my God, that book was actually, I was surprised by how much I liked Superman Smashes the Klan. It's funny because I read them as single issues. They came out kind of as for what prestige format single issues, and then they reformatted it. And I remember the first one, I was like, oh, this is like a bit clunky. And then by the second one, I was just like, I couldn't put them down. And it does have that, but I think it's more, it's a little moodier. It's like very autumnal as a book. It's a very like slow paced, warm coffee drink book. But with lots of fight scenes. Still, I manage. I'm like, it's all that, but then he still punches things like every 20 pages.
Was it intended to come out episodically rather than a graphic novel?
The Superman Smashes the Klan?
No, your
oh no, mine's it's always been a graphic novel. I'm talking about Superman Smashes the Klan.
I realized that. I was wondering though about your book.
It was always a graphic novel, but there was. There's been some shakeup at DC Comics over the past few years, and the book hadn't properly. It was like light green lit, like it was like everyone wants it, but we have not given you the formal offer type of thing. And I remember at that point I was really nervous, and and I was like, I didn't know I was scared of what the holdup was, and I think the pandemic was already starting to happen. And one of the things I said was, look, like I have, I do these kinds of comics over here. I can do the mainstream stuff, and I can kind of,
Yeah.
retool this a bit to make it. We can do it like that. We can do it like Supergirl being Super, where it's just 4 prestige format single issues. And I was like, oh, maybe they want more of the cape. And I was like, hey, look, the cape is already part of the story. If you need the cape to be a bigger part of the story, let me know. And then luckily everything stayed kind of exactly as it was. I think a few things they pushed back on were just sort of like the final fight scene was going to be a little more violent and a little more intense, and we had to have a talk about that, and I think it landed exactly where it needs to be. So
I still agree with you, man. Yeah. No, you killed it, Sina. Seriously.
Thank you so
I mean,
much.
and I was already a fan of your Marvel stuff. So, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
No, I think this is such a great book, and it does well, again, from my late 50s perspective, it does what a YA book should do. But then again, as well, it really is a great all ages story that I think has some pretty hard things in it with dealing with teenage suicide. I lost a couple friends when I was younger to illness and things like that. Sadly, one of my good high school friends killed himself
I'm
as
sorry.
a middle-aged guy. These terrible things happen, and you can't get inside. Sometimes you can't get inside these people's heads in terms of what leads them to these horrible choices.
Yeah.
It's rough, but it's part of life. And I don't know if you're watching the Boys spinoff Gen V or the Boys itself.
I've watched The Boys. I haven't watched Gen V yet.
Well, Gen V deals with some real hard teen. It's basically the Boys in college. It's like the Teen Titans version
Yeah.
of the Boys, which is great. And they hit the trans issue, and I think they do it in a very mature, reasonable way of presenting those who understand and those who don't understand. And I think they do a great job. And a good friend of mine, Mitch Halleck of Terrificon, he's like, I don't know, I think that's kind of rough to have on a show that's aimed at teens and college kids. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Our friend Franco of Art and Franco, Tiny Titans fame, Franco just retired as a high school teacher, and he's like, Mitch, kids deal with this all the time, and he goes, and they prepare parents and teachers to deal with this. I also think it's great at the end of the book, and I think it's very responsible that you kind of put some places that if people are dealing with these kind of rough subjects, where they can go to get help, both on a personal level for the people that might be depressed and God forbid are thinking about the worst. But no, I think you handle this very responsibly. It's a tough subject, but I think it's something that needs to be there and discuss. And I think your story gives people a point, if they haven't experienced it in their own lives, to consider and discuss.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, it's sort of like it's funny because I subconsciously took a lot of things that maybe I hadn't fully processed and then used this book to kind of process them.
Sure.
And so it came from giving love to maybe things that I didn't understand, and also trying to give compassion to that kind of loss, or give space to people who feel that kind of loss, or also feel that kind of lost at the same time. So anyway, I'm sorry to hear that about you, though. That's awful.
Well, again, man, it's unfortunate and it's part of life, and you handle it the best you can. And again, his family is still good friends with me, and his brother and sister, have done the best to continue to have productive lives. And what can you do? And also, man, Jesus, going back to Marvel days, your run on Iceman. I'm so sorry it was as short as it was, because goddamn, man, it was great. And I think you had Bobby Drake at a time when he kind of discovered self-discovery through his younger self, the Bendis X-Men story of the original 5 coming back through time, and facing their future selves and their present selves. And that whole thing, I think you handled that incredibly well. And I mean, I loved the personal story that was happening alongside, man, every issue, the guest stars from a villain or a hero standpoint. Just a lot of great conversations with Bobby Drake and his world.
Yeah, thank you. That was a special. I mean, yeah, I was public about maybe not having fun making, not making the book was always fun. There was issues around, working with Marvel at that time, but the book is like so special to me, and it's funny that you said it was so short because it's like we kept getting more stories. Like we were canceled, and then they gave us like one issue. Then we were uncanceled and got a mini series. So then that was like a whole bonus round, and then on top of that, then they gave me like an oversized one shot on top of it. So everything kept being like bonus round, bonus round, bonus round. So I could have told a million more with him. He's such a cool, great character. And I'm reading Steve Orlando's Iceman right now, and it's fun being like so many years removed, being like, man, this is like, this is like no direction I would have known about, because it's also post all that Hickman stuff too. So I'm just like, what the heck? But it's great because I'm so removed that I can just be a fan.
Well, that's cool. Here, Mike Jones says the Amazing Friends issue of Iceman was tremendous fun. Great tribute to the cartoon. I'll tell you, my favorite story arc was that second story arc involving the Champions. It is such a weird team from the 70s, and I can speak from experience reading those when they were brand new in the 20-cent era and everything. Did you ever get a chance to talk to Tony Isabella, the guy who wrote those Champions issues?
Yeah, but beforehand, not after.
Okay.
I didn't think to reach out. I was also like a little conditioned to like don't reach out to like other writers. There was before he left Marvel, I really wanted to do Bobby confronting like the Jean Grey aspect earlier on, and everyone at Marvel. I was like, let me go talk to Brian Bendis and explain my point of view and explain what I'm going to do. And they're like, no, you don't talk to Bendis. Don't talk to Bendis. Like, absolutely not. And don't step on anything he's done, blah, blah, blah. And then years later, I emailed Brian about some other stuff because he gave a quote to a book I did at Image called Getting It Together. And I just said, hey, like, thank you. And, I don't know how I brought it up, but I just said, this was my approach to that thing or whatever. Or I'm sorry that I did it, but this is how I felt. And this is what they said. And he's like, oh my God, I wish you had reached out. And it's just one of those things where I was trying to be such a good boy. I never like reached out to the people, but God, let me tell you, those Champions issues were really fucking hard to write because that is
Go on.
That is a weird team. And it was also like a weird circumstance. And it was just all weird. And then also too, they made me change the bad guy's motives. And so then suddenly it didn't make sense. Like what exactly, it was just, I'm glad you liked them because, man, those issues were weird to write. But it was fun, too, to also kind of like they're all such different voices. And I was reading the old stuff and I was trying to figure out, like how to make it fit into kind of what's happening. So I'm glad you liked them because, damn, those were fucking weird to write.
Well, again, like you said, they are incredibly distinct personalities. But you wonder, I mean, it almost felt like even back then as a little kid, I'm like, did they just decided they needed another team? And let's throw 2 X-Men with Black Widow, Hercules, Ghost Rider, Valkyrie, Gargoyle. I mean, all these weird characters back in the day. And what I love much, and especially just like your first arc on Iceman, it's, as Bendis has said a million times, we've seen a million punching scenes. It's the conversations. It's the interpersonal relationships that come through. And I think what you did with, again, addressing one of Bobby's former girlfriends, Kitty, and her role in the first arc, certainly all the stuff with his parents was just fantastic. But also, yeah, these weird relationships he had with the Champions. You got great stuff with him and Angel, obviously. And again, original 5 X-Men guys that have been together forever. But really, no, Hercules and and Johnny Blaze and everything. It's like, what?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think the best time I had was just kind of watching them be wingmen. I think that was the best place to like also make their voices pop and sort of be distinct.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a weird one.
It's true. Well, as Isham says here, nothing says team material like Ghost Rider. Hey, man, I don't know who was the editor in chief of Marvel back then. And I mean, really, it's the incongruity of putting that group together speaks to the run itself. I mean, I don't think there were even 20 issues of the original Champions run. So I can't imagine. Did like, like almost like a forensic investigator? How much did you read of those original issues and everything?
I don't. I know I did read some because
Sure.
you have to,
Yeah.
but I don't know how far I got because I think I read it. I think I read like maybe like 5 or 6 and was just like, there's nothing I'm gonna get from here that's aside from kind of like, all right, dynamics and types of adventures and location. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna get from these that's gonna like help me. I might have read more than that, or I might have started like skipping around. I can't because it's one I think that I don't remember. That's man, I have to look back, but I read enough to be like, I don't know. This isn't gonna this isn't gonna make whatever I'm doing like any better to see where they came from. But yeah, those were very weird books.
Yeah, and I think I might be conflating the Defenders and the Champions because Isham asked, was it the Defenders or Champions where Jesus saved Johnny Blaze in a story? I don't remember.
I didn't read that one in either event.
So, yeah, I don't know. And actually, yeah, I don't think Valkyrie was in the Champions. She was in the Defenders. Whatever. But regardless, that's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Now, obviously, the Superman book is your current book. It's only been out for a few weeks, right?
Came out in October, so we're in November now. So yeah, like 6 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God, that's it. It feels like it's been 3 months or 3 years. It feels like it's been.
I know you've been on tour. You were telling me that off the air and everything, and you're in Portland now, and you're going to do a couple of signings in Portland or one signing in Portland.
One Portland, then Seattle the next day. So and then home, and then Chicago the Wednesday after Thanksgiving.
Oh, that's great. What store in Chicago? That's where I am.
I'm going to be doing Graham Cracker Andersonville.
Oh, hey, that's awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah, Chicago's big, so I'd welcome you to come out, but I don't know how far you are from Andersonville.
It's not that far, so no, I will do my best to be there, man. That sounds.
Oh heck
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. It'd be good to see you again, man. Absolutely. And again, I don't want you to, tell. I'm not asking for things you can't talk about prior.
Oh, open book.
Well, I don't know. Is there more DC or Marvel stuff coming up?
Yeah. Well, so earlier, So to get to the Marvel thing was like it was a very peculiar time working there, and I didn't feel very supported. And I think at that time, Comicsgate really had eyes on me, and they really didn't like the book, and they just kind of they made it challenging.
This is John saying it. Fuck them. It was a great book, but keep going.
And I think on the one hand, I understand like what corporations can and can't do when you're dealing with that kind of behavior. But then there was just some other stuff that made it feel like, this isn't a great company for me to work at. And so there were some conversations. I don't remember what the turning point was, but I just sent an email being like, and this is like the last thing I'll be doing at Marvel. Now, all that being said is like, I love that book. I love Iceman, and I love certain editors I worked with, but overall the experience was just like, these people weren't really interested in kind of helping me out or nurturing me or making me feel whatever. Though everything is fine because the 2 years after that were my busiest, and now I'm doing a Superman book. But no, what's coming up next is I've got an Aquaman story for Beast World. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's just in the Aquaman special. I'm writing the lead story in that. And then there's just 2 other things I can't talk about. And then I'm working on a trilogy of like middle grade graphic novels that I'm super excited about with like Penguin Random House. So but yeah, around January, I think, or maybe February, I'll be able to talk about some other stuff. So
let me know.
It's weird keeping your mouth shut. It sucks.
Yeah, believe me, I hear you. And like I said, I don't want to fuck up any company's marketing plans. That's okay. I'm really glad that DC is a better experience and that you're able to thrive over there. But also, you're create your own stuff too. That's terrific.
Yeah, everything's good, and yeah, DC's been really, really great. Like I've been there. I think it's like 5 years, 4 years now. I don't know, but like they've just every project has been has been really great, and they've given me, the keys to some awesome characters and some in really great ways too. Like it's like, I always loved the Batman black and white books, and I have so many of the Batman black and white statues, and so like when and I've always been scared to touch Batman. James Tynion is forcing me to rethink that and challenge me to
Good.
because like my dream is to be like, you're so good at comics that you get your own Batman black and white statue, and that's that's the
Wow.
new goal. I want to be that good. I want to
Oh,
get my own.
honestly, Sina, I hope to God they give you more art opportunities as well as writing opportunities, because I do like your art a lot.
So that's the new goal. But anyway, they gave me Wonder Woman black and gold, and I wrote one of my favorite comic book stories ever in that, and it was like a nod to Diana in the 70s when she was like depowered and all that stuff.
Oh
So
wow, that's great,
yeah,
man. White suited Wonder Woman, Diana Prince, and
yeah,
poor Denny O'Neil, man, thought he was doing this great forward thinking, yay women thing. And Glorious, I mean, I actually got to meet Gloria Steinem back in 2006 at the New York Con. And I'm like an idiot. I mean, essentially, I'm sure it would be called mansplaining today. But I'm like, I get where you're coming from. But, what Denny was trying to do was ... And she's like, yeah, that's great. No, he was wrong. All right, never mind. I'm sorry, And again, she's a genius. I mean,
it totally turned into like this weird punchline, but it's like, but it's a part of her tapestry. So I did a whole little nod to that, and
you gotta find that. That's great, man.
yeah, and I worked with Leo Romero, who is doing he's doing, what is it, Titans right now? No, he's doing Titans covers. He's doing Birds of Prey right now. He's drawing Birds of Prey.
Oh
But
wow! I'm gonna talk.
yeah,
I gotta get back on the horse and bug Kelly Thompson about Birds of Prey. I love her. She's great. She's such.
oh yeah, and that book is like, I've only read one issue, but that issue fired on all cylinders. So I'm just assuming the rest of it's gold. But yeah, no. So anyway, anything it's always been a really great time working there, and and same with this like Superman book. It's just like anytime we were up against something that either like standards and practices didn't agree with or editorial didn't agree with, it was always a conversation rather than a hard no. Or I also just really appreciate the risks they let me took. It was really cool. I mean, I don't know, it was, but also the things I'm talking about, it's like we fought over like Lex Luthor drinking, and I was just kind of like, come on, like watch Gossip Girl, underage kids drink, like,
That
and
was
they're like,
great.
well, okay. Yeah, and it's funny too, because they were just like, okay, the only thing that has to happen is like Clark has to say that he doesn't condone it, and I was like, yeah, that's fine. He doesn't. Like, I
Right.
agree. Like,
Right.
like, so, but yeah, they've been super super cool, and it's yeah. So, and I think it shows in the work, and yeah, they're I like Dawn of DC. It's been a good time there.
Outstanding, and I'm glad you won that argument, because I think it absolutely it's Lex's disdain of the rules of societal conventions, and it's Clark growing up with those conventions and going, no, it's wrong, man. What are you doing? And it's
Yeah.
it's a great little opening moment to a bigger scene. So that's great. All right, now I want to hear about Howard Chaykin, because
Yeah, that picture yourself. It was okay. So
that's from one of our conversations. First of all, and I will absolutely confess, I've enjoyed Howard's work since I was a little kid. It tickles me that he seems to enjoy coming on Word Balloon, because he does it a lot. In fact, I had him on in October and this month. I just talked to him this past Sunday.
oh, nice. Oh wow.
So yeah. So tell me what it's like. How did you get the job, and what was it like assisting Howard Chaykin? I'm sure you got stories.
Well, we have the same lawyer, and I don't know how. I must have just asked. I think I wanted to level up as an artist at the time, and I. So yeah, I must have asked, but I don't know how I had the gumption to ask him. But yeah, I took a quarter off from college, and a couple days a week I would drive out to his home. He lives in Ventura County, and basically, it was there was a number of like different things to do there, and some of it was great because he would buy these like old magazines, and basically you would go through them and you would just tear out like the reference paintings he wanted, or because he would have these old magazines where it was like Ad Men era, and it was these beautiful like paintings for like cigarette ads or whatever, or beauty products. And so then you'd put them, and then he has this like whole wall of reference folders. And so there was doing that. Then there was actually doing art assists where, like it'd be like, okay, draw this background, and I learned some stuff, some tricks there. And then there's also like a digital component of, he has just this like treasure trove of textures. And so then he would code the page and send it to you and be like, okay, so we need this wood panel here, or we need this like tech here at this perspective here. And it was before I had taken some really fundamental art classes. I needed to take figure drawing and a perspective class. And so it was a little like, it was also kind of, he whipped me into shape in terms of like not eyeballing things, but actually knowing like where the vanishing point is of something, and kind of like really actually honoring the rules before breaking them. So it was great. And I think one of the best sentences I ever just sort of like fly on the wall heard an artist say was just, I remember being there one morning, and he was like, I don't know how he phrased it, but he's just like, my wrist isn't feeling it today. Like it's not a good day. And he just pivoted to something else because he's a consummate professional, and he just knew that was not the day. He was drawing Hawk Girl and Blade at the time. He was doing those two projects in this window. And instead of putting himself in a position where he would have to draw faces or figures, and his wrist wasn't feeling it, he just pivoted to something where he would be getting work done, but it wouldn't mess up the money shots. And so I think instead that's when he like he would touch up kind of like background illustrations that maybe one of the other assistants did. Like they would kind of sort of set up the backgrounds, and then he would go in and flesh them out and make them Chaykin-esque, as it were. And so like that was a big thing I learned, was like, you can 100% know you're not firing on all cylinders, or that your wrist isn't feeling it, but that's not an excuse to stop putting your hand on the page and just find low stakes things to put your hands on. So that way, and even up to like the Superman book, it's like when it came time to draw it, I told the editor, I was like, hey, can I not start drawing it on page 1, because pages 4 and 5 are like the best image of Superman ever. It's a spread of him flying, and I was just like, I don't want that to be the first time I draw Clark. So can I just start on page like 67 or something, just some random page that doesn't matter? And I got my wrist ready. I spent some time drawing these characters like here, there on like low stakes pages. And then like after a month or two, I was like, all right, now I'm going to handle these iconic pages and put myself in a, position for success. And so, that's kind of my way of absorbing that feedback. But no, he was, it was really great seeing how he was able to basically just do this day in, day out, month in, month out, year in, year out, decade in, decade out, and how to keep ideas and art moving. And I unfortunately had to end up cutting it short, and I like went back to school. But even just like, it was like, I think it was like 4 or 6 months or something, but even just that time was like, it, that changed a lot for me. And I'll always be grateful that like he said yes to me.
Did you have you had chances since then to see him at cons and talk to him? Do you stay in touch at all?
Yeah, we've talked, and we collaborated on a project together for the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. I think I drew a story he wrote. And and in typical Howard fashion, it's like we're doing the thing, and it was great. And then like at the very end, he just sort of like casually said this thing that just like totally deflated me and knocked me out. I was like, damn, he's just always gonna school me. But that's the thing. He loves you like a tough ass parent.
Oh, 100%, man. No, and it tickles me when I can make him laugh, or he's of that generation just ahead of me that an older brother or cousin would be in, and we, especially when there was so limited amount of comics and pulps and things, we read the same pulps. We like a lot of the same old Hollywood things. And I'm glad you talk about the textures he uses in his backgrounds. And especially, my God, the clothes, especially when he's doing period pieces.
Yeah.
I love that. I think it is so great. And I remember some knucklehead commenter on a Chaikin article at CBR or Newsarama back in the day. And no, Howard Chaikin, all he draws is the same face over and over again. And it's like, that's style. That is that is by design. Howard has his faces that he likes, and that's great. And it's like, you really don't know what you're talking about, whoever you are. I'm sorry about your uninformed opinion, but so be it. And I also feel bad for Howard because I think that a lot of his more salacious comics have had people like the Divided States of Hysteria and things like that. People labeled him as a conservative, and it's like, man, you got the wrong guy. Howard's
Yeah.
It's an old-fashioned liberal, and I'm not saying he follows the pack on what the left thinks at every step, but it's like, man, you really don't know who you're talking about, do you?
Yeah, he's good at getting a reaction, and I think that he's got a very interesting career, and he's beyond he's beyond kind of the current way of like absorbing feedback, and he just instead like doubles down and plants his feet. He's like, I'm an artist, and it's like, I get that, boo, but
Yeah. No, again, he's gone through so many decades of, God, I remember in the 80s when people were shitting on his Shadow. And it's like, I'm an old-time radio fan. I'm an old pulp fan. I loved what he did with the Shadow. And hey, man, like you said, no, he's not afraid of alternative lifestyles and things like Black Kiss and things like that. And at the end of the day, he's like, I like smutty stuff. I'm sorry. I like graphic sex. I like, whatever. And it's like, go, Howard. More power to you, man. I mean,
and the Black Kiss stuff is some of his best illustration work too. It's like, he's so, you can see he's in the zone in those pages. So yeah, I feel it. But yeah, he's a man of many projects, and and when he hits, it hits really good.
No, I'm with you, man. God, I don't know if you read when DC. I don't know if you did any of the Hanna-Barbera crossovers.
No, I wasn't there yet. Those were so cool. God, I wish they were really, really cool.
And his Rough and Ready, where he basically turned them into Martin and Lewis, Martin, Jerry Lewis, and being these old-time showbiz guys that some savvy manager is like, all right, we're going to reboot you and present you to a new audience. And I can't remember the name of the artist because Howard just wrote it. He got a guy that did a very black, sad kind of Disney-esque or really Hanna-Barbera presentation. It's a great miniseries, and I don't think they ever traded it because also I don't think Hanna-Barbera was very happy about what he did. But again, it's Howard being Howard, man, and it's outstanding. Snake wants to know, do you have a dream DC title that you would like to write? I don't know if you'd like to.
I mean, like all of them. Well, it also, I think the like dream. It's like if I knew that there was like a market for it, it's like I would always love to kind of just like get Impulse like back to sort of just like closer to where he came from. He's just
sure.
He's cool. I think any one of the Robins is great. Any of them would be fun to write in their own way. And then what was one that I was like really excited about? Can't remember. I like because like I get so excited and then they're like, oh no, what the fuck am I talking about? Sorry. Yeah, duh. No, I would love in a dream world, I would love Plastic Man. And I've written him once, but I think I'd love to write and draw him. I'd love to do like the whole book. Draw the backgrounds are like everyone in the backgrounds are like Hard Boiled, Sin City, Frank Miller, Noir, and then he's just like bouncy Craig Thompson, like just like that, and I've said it a few times, but again, it's just I'm not famous enough that I could sell 50,000 copies of it, and the character, I think just they've tried a few times that they don't want to really like try again unless they try it right. So, but that's my dream, and I will gladly wait until the right time to do that. So that's my goal.
Maybe one of the great anthologies that they do where they have the 10-page stories, and there might be room for, because man, I would love to see your art style doing Plastic Man. I think that would be amazing. And people forget because there have been so many iterations and stuff, and it's like like you said, no, you go back to Police Comics in his debut, and it's like, no, he was a noir character. I mean, he was
Yeah.
insane, and it was a counterbalance to all the noir characters and backgrounds that they put him in. But no, I think that'd be amazing.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like I one time like shared a table with Kyle Baker 2 Comic Cons in a row, I think, or maybe I helped out at his table one year. I can't, man, I've been at this a long time. But like I was, Plastic Man was coming out and he was winning all these Eisners for it, but the book was selling like 8,000 copies or something. It was just like it could not move, and I love those books. I love his Plastic Man, and then I love Gail Simone's Plastic Man. But I know what like both of them did wrong. It's like he played it too far silly, and she played it a little too serious. And I, it's like, oh, I know, I do it right. I do it right if you trust me. But I understand that it's like, yeah, you gotta wait till the time is right. And that's the other reason also too. I'll push back. It's like I don't want to do a 10-page story. I already did a 10-page story with him.
I
want to
realize, your buddy said he did do that. Which anthology was it in? See, now I want to find
it was in DC Comics' Love is a Battlefield, and he basically like an ex of his needs him to get her out of a rough situation with her current flame, who is like like a mob boss or something like that.
Sure.
And
Yellow O'Brien, as your buddy says, yeah.
Oh, there we go.
The criminal background, certainly. Go on.
But no, I want to do like I feel like I could be the person that could do the Plastic Man book that would be like on shelves when the movie comes out, type of thing. Like, and it's like the only time I'm like uber confident is about Plastic Man. I'm like, yeah, that's the one that I would tell the defining Plastic Man story.
Did you draw it as well as write it, or just wrote it?
I just wrote it. It was oh my god, sorry. In my head it's not, is it Mike Nelson? What's Battle Pug's name? Yeah, it's Mike Nelson, right?
Mike Norton.
Sorry, I knew it. Sorry, I knew it was Mike and N.
There's another good Chicago friend of mine. Absolutely, man. So
super cool guy. We've sat next to each other at cons, and we've stayed friends, and he was really awesome to work with, and he super got it. Like I was just like, kind of same thing. I was like, you're great with humor, like let's and you're great with babes, and so he was perfect for it, because like the dame in it was really hot. So yeah, go pick it up. But yeah, go find it. It's probably on DC Unlimited. But yeah, it was a cool ass story, and Mike's a cool ass guy, and he's in Chicago. That's good. I'm gonna message him and be like, come to my signing.
Yeah, really, man. No, we should all do a pilgrimage and come see you. Absolutely. Now, I don't know if you colored the Superman book, but Isham was wondering, he sees echoes of For All Seasons. We certainly talked about how that was, excuse me, an influence for you. But from a coloring standpoint, did you color the book?
No, we hired Chris Peter, and she had worked on. I didn't find her, but I saw her art in Shadow of the Batgirl, the Sarah Kuhn Nicole Gu book, and I was like, oh, let's get her, because she knows how to do kind of these like crazy palettes, and she was already approved by DC, so she was fantastic. And I had to ask her. The only thing I said to her was, I just said everything should be warm. Like everything should be really, really warm. Keep things warm. And then whenever Lex is around or Luthor Corp is around, like cold. That's when you use like cool grays and cold colors, because that is them, and that is what they are bringing to Smallville. I want that contrast anytime you see those characters and that environment. And so that's the only note I gave her. I don't know if she read For All Seasons, but I definitely, I think I like drew some of the backgrounds to kind of evoke the space that sort of Tim Sale gave in those pages.
Yeah, I wonder if Loeb had a chance to read this. And if he would, because I think he'd find a lot of synchronicity between what you and Tim did with Smallville and everything. Absolutely. And yeah, it's good to hear that Chris Peter, man, I haven't thought about her for, interviewed her years and years ago. And yeah, she's great. She's a great color.
So nice, so like collaborative. And like, it's funny too, because like someone was flipping through it and they were like, oh, there's like a different color palette for like each part of the book, and I was like, I didn't even notice that. You get too close to these things and you just don't even see like the love that your other collaborators are giving. Like even the letterer we got was DC Hopkins, and I worked with him on Ghosted in LA, and like when we wrapped the book, he said some really nice stuff about it too, and he was just like, I don't know, it was just it was a good, it was, everyone was good, everyone was happy. It was a really loving project, and so I love all these people.
Turned out great. And again, I've been leaning more on the Smallville aspect, but I'm glad you brought up LexCorp, because there's definitely a very superhero-y or supervillainy sort of plot. It also echoes both Smallville and even the Superman and Lois current TV show of LexCorp coming into Smallville. And oh yeah,
Well,
hey,
this is Luther Core. This is his dad's company. But
right,
if there's a second one, I actually think the second one would be like his dad being like, "All right, let's see what you can do," and making a LexCorp. But like, but yeah, like line, because I wanted to. Yeah, the
yeah.
book is all about men, different kinds of men, and I wanted to show the juxtaposition of how sort of these two men raise their kids.
Jonathan and Lionel, yeah.
Yeah, and so they even butt heads in the book too, and that
Yep.
was a really fun scene to like write and create, and I ended up wanting to do all this like stuff by the end of it, and I was like, oh, maybe I should ask for 20 more pages, and so that way I can like do this scene and expand on this, and then I was like, no, man, save it, you might get a second one.
God, I certainly hope so. I want to show Jonathan and Martha again, because you really kind of gave them a different look than I've seen before, and I like it. But yeah, I was kind of interested in what your inspirations were, especially Jonathan. I don't remember him looking like that before.
No, he's never looked like a daddy bear. I did that. I was like, I gotta draw this guy for 180 pages. Like, might as well make him adorable.
Hilarious. That's awesome.
It's funny too, because I guess like that's like Dave was like, oh yeah, your two quibbles, Dave, were like about how I depicted Jonathan, and then I can't remember the other one, but you were like, and if I hadn't seen like an earlier sketch of him, I wouldn't have like even thought that I didn't like it. But it's like, I don't care.
Nah, Jesus Christ, man. No, I do think forgive me, Kent mother and father fans, but I think there is room to experiment when you've got Jonathan and Martha looking the way they do and everything. I love it. I think it's great, and there's room to give us different interpretations. Why not?
Yeah, I wanted him to be like modern, like late 40s, early 50 somethings,
Yeah.
And because it's like, I feel like sometimes it's like you run into them getting it, not to talk about the other team, but like they turn into like Aunt May, where they become like old and doddering, and you're like, what? Why did you make them so old? So it was fun to kind of make them, and also make them this couple that just sort of like loves each other and sasses each other, and they have this like, they have their own bond, and it was so much fun to make all of these people come to life. It was a blast.
You succeeded, man. Well done, and good luck on the rest of the signings that you got coming up. Portland tomorrow. Again, give us the stores that you got coming up.
I'll be at Books with Pictures in Portland tomorrow, Friday, and then I will be at Phoenix Comics in Seattle Saturday, 1 to 4, and then Graham Cracker, Andersonville. What I think that's like the 30th, and that's a funny one. I think they have me like 11 a.m. to 12:30 or 12 to 1:30. But I'm sure I can stick around longer if like, there's people around. But they made it a weird 90-minute window, but that's probably because it's freezing in Chicago right now.
Yeah, actually, not bad today. 60s actually.
Oh, okay, good. All right,
but
let's hope that holds.
Yeah, it's hit and miss in Chicago because we already had our first frost on Halloween. So you never know. I mean, it's classic Chicago weather. Wait 20 minutes and the weather will change. But
good. I'm so excited.
Bring layers. Definitely bring layers, man. Well, dude, seriously, great talk, and congratulations on the current book. I'm excited. Oh, and yes, Isham says Books with Pictures, of course, won the Spirit of Light vendor award, store award.
I'm so excited. And again, my best friend in comics, Josh Trujillo, just did an event there, and he spoke so highly of it. So like, I'm real excited to visit that store. And for people, I know Dave knows this, but my very first comic book that I self-published was called Books with Pictures, because I worked at a comic store called Heidi Ho Comics and Books with Pictures, and it was a store. It was a book about that store. So
Oh, wow.
I'm gonna have a really like they don't know it, but I'm gonna have a really like warm, fuzzy feeling when I get there tomorrow. So I'm excited.
Sounds great, man. Well, congrats on the
Thanks.
new book. Once again, I'm going to put the thing up there so I get the title correct. Superman, The Harvest of Youth. Sina does the writing and the drawing, and we got great Chris Peter colors. But it's really great, and I'm so
Thanks
glad.
so much.
Yeah, man, and I'm looking forward to more both your independent stuff and more DC stuff too. So come back. We'll have another conversation.
Awesome, sweet. It's great chatting with you, and I'll see you in like 2 weeks.
Sounds good, man. Thanks everybody for watching. I think that does it for this week on Word Balloon Live, but I'm setting stuff up. I'm going to be talking to my good friend, movie critic Matt Singer, and we'll be talking about the streaming shows and the movies and how things are going. But Matt just wrote a great book about two Chicago critics that became national media critic icons, Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert, and
Hey.
they're great combination as a duo, but also just their own distinct lives. I had the pleasure of knowing both men, and it's a hell of a book. And I'll be talking to Matt about that on Sunday night. That's the next Word Balloon Live. So until then, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.